Well, just a quick high level of my career. 30 years in talent acquisition. Started back in the 90s on the search side, the agency side. So that's where I received my foundation in recruiting. And then around the late 90s is when companies started to put in their centralized recruiting, where they started to take recruiting and want to develop it in house. So I was 97. I went in house to a corporation here in the Cleveland area. And so since 97, I've worked for a number of different large corporations within Northeast Ohio in centralized recruiting. So my background in 30 years is all talent acquisition, and it's very heavy in the manufacturing, industrial, automotive, consumer type spaces of manufacturing. And then currently at Nordson, I'm the senior manager of global talent acquisition. So I work out of our U.S. location in Cleveland, Ohio. And my role is more on the strategic side. We have a global team of around 15 recruiters. And my role is a lot on process, strategy, technology. What do we need to do? What do we need to put in place to make the recruiters successful, to make our process successful, to have the employee candidate experience? So it's everything from when a rec's created all the way up to once we make that offer. That's where my umbrella is as
Love
far as
it.
managing that process.
Through your course of your career, you've dealt with a lot of ups and downs within the industry. What do you see the biggest recruiting challenges that you're seeing within the manufacturing sector today?
When you're a global company, you have a global footprint, and you have a lot of locations that might not be in the most attractive areas or populated areas. So one of your challenges is where your locations are. So it's the geographics on certain levels of talent. And when I'm talking, I mean, it could be production or non-production, but I'm more focused on the salaried side. And so when you have positions at these facilities, the challenge is that audience or that population within what I would say 50 miles. So they'd be able to drive within an hour. Um, Relocation, getting people to want to relocate to those locations. And then the other challenge would be the expectations on candidates, where it's hybrid, remote, when some of these roles you need on site because it's a manufacturing plant. So I think that's one of the challenges. The other challenge we have is hiring managers' expectations. So a lot of times it's not so much recruiting, it's more of the manager's expectations, maybe willingness not to bend with transferable skills or look at a second option to be flexible to find somebody because of the challenges you have on location or semi.
Sure. Sure. With those couple of those pain points, I know we've had multiple discussions on there's information out there, technology out there to better support your recruiting team to be better business partners, going into those hiring leader meetings, leading with data, understanding the market, having a better search from a strategy standpoint, and understanding the market. How have you seen, or what have you done at Nordson, some strategies that you've implemented to overcome some of those recruiting challenges that you have been dealing with?
So I came aboard in November of 2022. So in 2023, as I looked at the landscape with all these challenges, I was looking for ways for my recruiters to be more TA advisors, more in that consultative approach. So how do you do that? Well, you do that with knowledge, data, understanding the talent landscape, the marketplace. You got to bring analytics or data into your recruitment strategies. So as I started to look, of course, everybody on this call uses LinkedIn, maybe Indeed, as their recruiting tools. I was looking at something else to complement those two tools. And I wanted a tool that was more just focused on one, sourcing, but two, analytics and insights. So to your question, Dan, is back over a year ago is when I did some demos and then started working with Hire Easy and then purchased the tool and put the tool in place. So how I'm addressing these challenges now is using your tool, your insights and analytical modules. As we run a search, we are downloading those into the executive profiles, the PDF, and being able to take that to the recruitment strategy meeting to address when you're talking about it, to show the hiring manager or the business, here's the talent landscape. Here's what we're going to run into. Here's the challenges. Here's what we do. But again, we can find everyone. So that's my point, showing them I have the intelligence, but this is what we need to do before you start a search. I think the biggest problem in-house, especially in manufacturing, everybody's in a hurry. They start the search, and then you go 30 days in, 45 days, I can't find somebody, or there's disagreement on the resumes presented, and this isn't the right person, when you did take the time up front to really strategize on the position.
How has that utilizing the Hire Easy insights to better give your team confidence, understanding the market? Is there any examples of bridging the gap from being a rec taker versus a talent advisor as they support some of the businesses and the leaders that they are supporting? Walk us through some of that.
Yeah, so let me just give you a recent example here. We have a location in Swainsboro, Georgia, and we're going to be looking for an HR business partner there. This person has to be on site because it is a plant. So we did the market data. Based off of the market data and within driving distance, within an hour, the pool was very small. So we were able to take that data and sit with the HR director and be able to analyze and look at what are different roles that might open the recruitment. So I think where it's made a difference is the recruiters feel confident now that this data is telling them what they're up against. And now they can consult. So would we take an HR generalist ready to move into a business partner? Yes. Now that opens the pool a little bit more. Would we look at somebody that said, okay, we'll go 3 days a week and 2 hybrid? That opens the pool. We're showing them all the companies that are in the area. We need somebody out of manufacturing. So we're showing them, we have all the manufacturing companies. We're showing them the salary ranges. What's going on in the marketplace? Here's what generalists are making. Here's what business partners are making. Out of this talent pool, here's the average salary. Is it in line with what we're looking for? So I think it gives the recruiters confidence that they can get an agreement up front before you start the search. Sure, or they can come to me and I can have a conversation if we're getting to a point with the hiring manager where there might be a disagreement, I can step in and really talk through those analytics as well and help formulate a strategy. So I think it gives confidence to the recruiter that, one, they know where all the talent is. They know the salaries. They got a plan. They feel more confident now that they're in agreement with the manager on what to do before they start the search.
For sure. Awesome. It equips those recruiters to have confidence to be a talent business partner versus just a rec taker. Walk me through the unique recruiting challenges as you see manufacturing, and walk me through the talent shortages, the skill gaps, and how you think the manufacturing sector is going to be more competitive than ever before in the upcoming years. And why do you think that?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot more manufacturing coming back, into the U.S. So that's going to be a demand for talent. If you look at manufacturing, you have a lot of individuals that started early in their career that are now at the point where they're eligible for retirement. They were part of pensions, so they could get out a little early. So I've noticed on LinkedIn with all my connections, I've seen a lot of people announcing their retirements. You have that baby boomer generation that's just about gone. So then you had a next generation, which there was less population, and it even goes down even more. So you're going to start I think that's what you're going to run into the challenges is um, all the new skill sets coming in. That's why I think like university relations and those programs are very important. Start getting the early career pipeline, but the talent. I think what you're going to see here is you're going to still see a fight for those players, the talent, and that's where it's going to come into where it's going to be all about speed and time. Who can get these individuals quick enough? Who can recruit them, get them in a pipeline, and get them an offer and get them accepted before somebody else is talking?
As you see the future, you needed a tool that was able to do that. Walk me through the decisions on you've demoed a lot of the tools out there. Your team demoed it. Why was it Hire Easy? And what eventually made that decision of why you chose it?
One was functionality. I didn't want a complicated tool. I looked at a lot of tools, did demos. Some of them were complicated, or I wanted something that was very easy, user-friendly for the recruiters. I wanted a tool that could source somewhere different. I wanted an advantage. I wanted to tap into not just profiles, but where could we find phone numbers, emails, other ways to get in a touch of a candidate. When you go on to like LinkedIn, great tool, but unless you're connected or if they don't have a phone number and email, you're at the mercy of that email. Well, they're getting a lot of emails. Well, I grew up in when I couldn't get a hold of somebody this way. I would find their phone number. I'd find an email. I'm going to find out how to get a hold of them and not sit back and wait for them to call me. That's what I wanted. I wanted a tool that was going to be very aggressive to find me all these different data points, phone numbers, emails, other ways to get a hold of them, other social media platforms they're on. That was another point that attracted me to your tool. The other one was the ability to engage candidates. How do you engage them more automated than worrying about my recruiter thinking, did I send Steve a message? Do I got to send, was it 5 days ago? Was it 3 days ago? Here where you could set up the sequences, be more automated. I thought, and then having the AI messaging create a message and then letting us tweak that message, letting us put videos uploaded or uploading a job description. We're working on recruitment branding now. That's a top initiative this year. Well, when you're recruiting somebody, you better have some branding to attract their interest right away.
So let's talk about that. So we talked about having your, first and foremost, you want to dive into the data, understand the landscape, the industry, what's going on, but having your recruiters be confident to share that and be a true business partner. Then we talked about how competitive it's going to be within the manufacturing sector and how to get a competitive advantage. And the competitive advantage is getting all that data on the candidates, on figuring out all these avenues to connect with these individuals. Then we talked a little bit about that multi-channel approach of I have an email, I have a LinkedIn, I have social media, I have all this information of how to doing that. And then it rolls into that automation piece of making sure that you can utilize the automation that the platform has and do a campaign that's specifically towards that individual utilizing our AI for a better response rate. Let's tap in, like you said, that people want to touch, want to feel, want to understand what that culture is at your company and how you're utilizing some of that employer brand, recruiting, marketing in sync with some of the campaigns. And that also, how do you measure that? And how do you get all that analytics, seeing if it actually works? I'll pause there and let you speak.
Yeah. Well, the analytics they're provided by your organization. So that would be another that I like where I have quarterly reviews with the tools that I'm using. So Hire Easy, LinkedIn, etc. They're supplying me with the metrics. Now I can run metrics through Workday, which is our ATS, but it gives me another data point. So I think what I liked about the Hire Easy tool was the metrics that you can provide me. I can run them myself, but then I can have a dialogue with my account manager and go over the metrics and understand where we are and where we need to improve. So is it in the engagement? Is it in the way we source? Is it, and so I think that's been very helpful over the last year. And we just did a review, Dan. I just did one here in January with your team. And I understood where some of our gaps were. Now, we only had a few, but now I know where to readjust. We retrained the recruiters. We had IREZ do a nice demo again. We addressed those issues. And then now, so we should see an increase in those channels within IREZ.
For sure. Looking back before you implemented the tool and now after, what do you think has changed in your process, in your outlook, your team's efficiencies? What has changed over the course of utilizing the tool, would you say?
I would say confidence is one because they have the data now to back up what they've said before, but it was the recruiter versus the hiring manager. So you didn't have any really facts. So I think one is the confidence. I think two is they have a strategy now. They can understand where the barriers are, where the challenges is before the search starts. We can go back and address things before the search actually starts. That's what's really helped with using the tool. But it's also another tool that we've added to our overall recruitment platform. So technology is very big. And my advice is you need to look at what tools are best for your organization. Where are you focusing your recruiting? We have Workday. We post our jobs like everyone. They get posted on LinkedIn. They get posted on Indeed. What I wanted to add I wanted to add more of that sourcing capability. I want our recruiters to be out headhunting, direct recruiting, building pipelines, having pipelines ready for future skill sets. And when you look at that, HireEZ is a complement to LinkedIn and Indeed. So now I have three powerful tools that balance one another. Now my recruiters have three tools to use. A lot of them use them all at the same time, sometimes depending on positions. But now we have all the capabilities. I don't need any more technology to support.
Wait, I was going to say, so you have Workday as your ATS, and walk me through how that two-way integration that you're finding maybe past applicants that either applied in the past or your recruiters are able to tap into a different database kind of with that refresh data to fill some roles. I mean, you always tell me that, agency recruiters come up to you and say, hey, I can do this, I can find this, I'll do this. And you've told me that you've kind of built that technology in-house that we can do it ourselves. Walk me through within those three buckets that you mentioned. How does everything work in sync?
Well, with HireEZ, you have the rediscovery. So we have it integrated with Workday. So that I think that was another key factor was how many in-house recruiters, when they get a requisition, I'm talking any company, how many of those recruiters actually go into their ATS to search first? Where do they go first? They probably go to LinkedIn. They probably go to see who applies or Indeed, right? But you have a database of hundreds of thousands of people that have applied since you've had that ATS. We have a global ATS. We got hundreds of thousands of resumes in there. All our recruiters are working on different divisions, different positions. The feature that I was impressed with was when I run a search on HireEZ, it'll pull anybody that's in our database that fits that job. And it's right at the beginning of the search, rediscovery, ATS candidates. So right away, I can take a look and say, wow, here was somebody that was a strong candidate, but finished second because somebody else, but let me call this individual. So that rediscovery, that just gives me another database. So that's kind of like the fourth database in my platform.
For sure. And what would you say, the statistics that I see is candidates are more likely to respond if they've applied once or engaged with the brand, engaged with the company, if they are in your ATS and recruiters reach out to you. how is that messaging more impactful than just somebody that is knows nothing about Nordson, nothing about the company, and it's just a cold email? What would you say? Why is it such an impactful thing?
Well, to your point, they've already either done the research or looked our organization up and said, this is an organization I want to go to. So
Sure.
they've already, I would say the branding, that message was already conveyed some way, either by the recruiter, maybe they were recruiting them for a position or talking with them, but you already have that connection. And I think
Sure.
that's important. So when they see the message coming from Nordson, they're like, oh, yeah, I applied there before. Okay, let me respond to Steve on that position.
For sure.
So, again, it's networking. I mean, we all talk to a lot of candidates that we might not have a fit today, but you never know when that position comes open.
100%. 100%. As you look into the future in 2025, how do you think AI technology is going to be a partner with your teams? I know there's a lot of some people say that it's just going to wipe out recruiting. How would you answer that question? How do you see technology going to be impacting recruiting?
Yeah, it's not going to wipe out recruiters. I see a lot of this on the webinars, and I see a lot of organizations that are selling the technology. The companies are not going to allow. You're going to have a lot of laws. There's compliant laws. Nordson, we have our own AI compliance team now. Okay, so as we look at technology, it's got to be reviewed. It's not going to take the place. You're still going to need that recruiter touch. You're going to still need that candidate experience with the recruiter. Where it's going to be impactful is its speed. It's going to give you the ability to speed up your process. And we all know when a job comes open, the hiring manager wants somebody yesterday. So AI is going to do a number of things with speed, give us the ability to find people quicker, to engage with people quicker, to have what I say the correct messaging, so that somebody knows, oh, that's attracting. Let me respond to Steve as the recruiter. So I think those are going to be all impactful. We're going to be able to find people like we are now. I mean, and so AI is going to be very beneficial, but it's not going to replace recruiters. I mean, I think you will run into a lot of issues. Lawyers will be involved if you're letting AI make decisions on who should be interviewed, who should be hired. I don't see that. I don't see that going down in the near future. I just think it's going to be a great tool for us to use. But my recommendation is, as you're looking at tools, make sure you're working with your business, whether your legal team or compliance team, like I do. Here's what I want to do with the tool. What's the risks? And what's the benefits?
For sure. I love your approach because whether it's Hire Easy or another tool, you want to go back to the business, making sure if it's right for your company and the business use case of, is it going to work here? Is it going to develop the recruiters to give them the confidence to make data-driven decisions to help fill recs faster, to help the business ultimately achieve their goals? I love that approach. If you would say, if you were in a room with a bunch of leaders and they said, hey, I see that you had Hire Easy, and they asked you, why did you implement that? Or would you recommend it, whatever it may be? What would you say to those leaders, whether it's manufacturing or not?
Our ability to find talent anywhere in the world. So we implemented it because I always hear the old cliche, like, we can't find anybody. I disagree with that. We can find anybody in the world. Anybody on this call who's recruiting can find just about anybody in the world with all the technology we're talking about. So I would say, when we look at our tools, and when I went with the organization to show them all our platform and our technology, it's for our ability to go out, build pipelines, find the talent we're looking for, get our name out there, engage with candidates, and be able to recruit them quickly for the positions we have open. Plus, with the amount of money we invest in our recruiting team and our technology, our goal is cost avoidance. So, we do partner with agencies, but we don't use them. We only use them in certain situations. But, again, our goal is to use this technology to save the company money or show that we can recruit.
For sure. As a team, go ahead.
No, that's what a benefit is. That's what I'd say the organization. I mean, this is, when you look at any search firm out there, they're using very similar tools to recruit.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
We have the same capabilities as any search firm in the country.
Love it. As a TA leader right now, going into 2025, what is one thing that you would encourage them to do of how to evolve their recruiting process?
I would say there's two things. One is continue to leverage the technology, continue to keep up to date on the tools we have, which is my responsibility, to keep up to date on those tools and to utilize those tools to the full extent. That's number one. And then number two, with those tools, take those into your capabilities as a TA advisor. Continue to be an advisor. Use data. Use analytics to tell your story, to put together your strategy, to partner with a hiring manager with that data and analytics.
Love it. You also said to develop your recruiters, and one of the big things that we do here at Hire Easy is build conferences to empower the recruiting community and the recruiters on the ground floor, as well as recruiting leaders. Steve, you were speaking at the FRBR conference coming up in February 25th. Walk us through a little snippet of what you're going to be talking about and why are you so passionate about this TA community?
Well, I'm going to talk a lot about the advisory role, the advisory strategy. So how do you partner? How do you advise? How do you influence outcomes? How do you become that subject matter expert? How do you build effective strategies with data and metrics and then tie that into that advisory role? So that's what I'm going to highlight at that conference, because I think I'm looking from an internal. A lot of external firms, they do that well. I mean, when they work with a company, they take that consultative approach. Okay. They're given market intelligence and they're given data. But when I've looked in over the years in-house, I don't understand some of the companies why that same approach doesn't happen internally. We should do the same thing. We're the subject matter experts. And it's all, and I think that's what companies look for. So all the companies I've worked for, that's what they welcome. They welcome us to come and say, how do we do this better? What do we need to do? But you got to show it with data.
For sure.
You got to be able to prove your point. You just can't go and say, we want to do this and we want to do that. But now I think with AI and the tools that evolved, I wish I had some of these tools 10, 15 years ago. Made my job a lot easier. But now that you have these, I think it's fantastic. I just ran a couple of analytics the last 2 days for 2 key jobs that we had in areas where I knew we would struggle. And I sent that information along to the manager and said, take a look at this. And then from there, we said, I said, talk with the recruiter and then build your strategy around this.
What was the reception of that manager when you delivered that data? What was their outcome? What did they feel about that situation of you actually preparing a deck or the data on that specific role?
Yeah, I think it was more of an eye opener. Like I didn't realize, and it's not. And when you look at managers, it's not their role to understand all this. If they're in HR, they're in engineering, they're in finance. That's their function. Well, it's our job to advise. So yeah, they were kind of they knew it, but when they see the data, it kind of hits home. Yeah, you are right. We are going to struggle. Let's think of option 1 and option 2. So now I'll have two options when we start. Instead of like most searches, I need this, and then there's no room for flexibility. And then what happens? 30 days go by, 60 days goes by, and you're running into the same problem that you addressed day one that you knew was going to happen. But then then everybody becomes frustrated. So what I'm trying to do is eliminate those pain points 30 days, 60 days in, and address them at the beginning of the search.
Love it. As we wrap up, any last minute advice, anything else that you want to tell the audience?
My biggest advice is the technology. How do you continue to leverage technology to, again, recruit, build pipelines, network, engage with talent? You got to get into you got to find the right technology for your business, whether it's an agency, in-house, whether you're 3 billion like we are, 20 billion, $100 million company. Find out the right technology that you need, and then understand how you're going to use that technology. So when you look at your process, how does that fit into your overall process? So again, like we own everything. Once the rec's created and approved, we own that process all the way up to ready for hire. So then once we hire somebody, then the onboarding goes to the HR ops, and then we go back to the positions we have. So when I look at that process, I have to look and see where does Hire Easy fit in best? Where does this technology fit in? And then where's it going to impact my process? And then where's it going to give me an ROI? So again, I just ran my metrics for last year, and taking a look at the tools. And yeah, our technology has been very successful in finance.
Well, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. A big shout out to the whole Nordson group and Steve for sharing your insights on how manufacturing and recruiting is going and how you're leveraging that AI, that data, that recruiting marketing to just stay ahead of the competitive talent market. Your approach of building strategic pipelines and positioning recruiters as those trusted advisors versus rec takers is truly, truly game-changing. And I just want to say thank you for your leadership and your movement in this. If you'd like to learn more about Hire Easy, feel free to click one of the links in the chat or connect with me. Feel free to do that, and I can get you set up. And again, sign up for the For Recruiters by Recruiters on February 25th. Go to Steve's session. It's going to be fantastic with 12 other different leaders within TA. So again, thanks again for being a part of today's session, and we look forward to seeing you guys in future webinars. Again, thanks again, Steve.
Thanks, Dan.
Appreciate it.